Good evening, folks. What's going on? Earthmaster here, checking in on this last day of the February, right? February 2021. It is the 28th, about 4:36 p.m. West Coast time. The latest earthquake, a pretty close 6.0 earthquake out here in the western part of the Pacific Ring of Fire. A 5.9 earthquake to be exact. We'll go ahead and check that out here on the latest earthquake map from the USGS. Don't you dare get hiccups. Out around the Vanuatu area. Vanuatu. I know I get that all the time. People corrected me. I'll call it Vanuatu tonight just to get it through very quickly. About 10 kilometers or so below the surface for this specific earthquake around that region, just south of the island or the area there. Due west of Port Vila. We have seen a couple moderate-sized earthquakes prior to that, just to the south of this little dip right here. Can see that in that little trench area. A couple four-pointer and a 5.5 earthquake striking within that little dip. Now we're seeing some more higher magnitude quakes up north around the Port Vila area. I'm sure this is going to continue overnight. We'll see what plays out in the plate tectonics department. In the west coast, we're looking at continued earthquake activity on the uptick and also into the weak crustal areas of the North American plate, which would include crude, right? Fracking operations, right? I know. A lot of people don't want you to say that taboo word. It's very taboo to say fracking, right? Because we can't say that word. Anyway, right around the Enid area, beautiful little country town. If you've ever been to Enid, or if you've never been to Enid, I would suggest go through there. I'm a big kind of old-fashioned country type of guy. Not saying that I'm cowboy or anything like that, but I enjoy the slower pace of life. And the Enid area, the Enid community has a great downtown district. Go check it out if you're ever in that area. I'm hoping to get out there again this year. Beautiful little community. Very nice people as well. So 3.7 being the largest quake in this little cluster of quakes out here, northwest of Enid area. We can go ahead and check that out on the satellite view, but I don't think we're going to be surprised as to what's out there, at least from the aerial views of the satellite district or the satellite views here. A couple ranch houses out here. There's a ranch house as well. A couple ranch houses down to the southeast as well. As far as fracking operations, I don't see any specific fracking operations out here. Maybe a couple small ones within the vicinity. Probably a couple thousand feet away or so. But directly underneath this earthquake activity, we're not seeing any fracking operations. But that's who's to say that that's not the reason behind it? Who knows? 8.2 being the lowest depth, or at least the deepest depth there for that 1.7. The main shaker, a 3.2 near Mino. Never heard of that community. So if I'm pronouncing that wrong, my apologies. Correct me if I am wrong. Around the Minnow area, 3.7 at 7.2 kilometers downstream there of the surface of the Earth. Of course, all throughout Oklahoma, fracking operations exist in a very highly compacted fashion, so to speak. What else we got out there in Oklahoma? A couple small quakes down south of Oklahoma City, right around the Ardmore area. A little cluster of quakes northwest of Ardmore at about 5 or 6 kilometers down dip, or downstream, I should say. Other than that, for the most part, Oklahoma looking beautiful as always. Also some movement down along the Texas area through Pecos, Texas. The big picture tonight out there in the west, Nevada. Look at Nevada, rocking and rolling out there all throughout the desert southwest area. We're looking at movement around the Las Vegas region as well. We'll go ahead and zoom in real quick down here to the south part of the state. No swarming to report down in the Salton Sea region, which is good. Movement, microquake movement, average earthquake activity along the San Jacinto Fault area looking pretty good as far as average earthquake activity goes. Up here along the Central Coast, we're looking at some oddball earthquake activity. They did have a 3.7 quake off the coast of, at least southeast of Lopez Point, 22 kilometers. This is along the San Simone area, San Simone fault system. South of here, we've seen a pretty good sized earthquake way back in 2003. There's that Simone earthquake. It was about a 6.6 magnitude earthquake striking out there in 2003. A couple years of built up pressure, no doubt, I'm sure. This one caused a pretty significant amount of damage. Severity was pretty high, and some fatalities, unfortunately, was recorded with this 2003 earthquake that struck near the central coast of San Simone there back in, 1915 UTC time, which was 11:15 Pacific Standard Time. It was felt as far away as Los Angeles. Pretty good sized earthquake out there, folks. That earthquake specifically, we'll go ahead and check this out real quick, is on this map right here. I went back here a couple years, or I should say 120 years or so, to check out the earthquake magnitudes within this vicinity of where this earthquake swarming is taking place there. This is the most recent map, folks. This is the all magnitude map over the last 24 hours, and this shows the earthquake activity in question, the 3.7 plus a couple aftershocks taking place there in a linear fashion, taking movement towards the San Simone fault system right there. The 2.3 that struck back in, or the 2.3, the 6.6 or 6.2 that struck, no, 6.6 that struck back in 2003 was much more inland, a ways away from the San Simone area, but they still call it the San Simone earthquake just due to the vicinity there. Now, taking a look at the other movement right here, there was that 6.2 roughly along the San Simone area back in 1952, to be exact, just south. You take it out. If you check it out there, I'm trying to get these maps lined up. This is the current map of the swarming. This is the map of the magnitudes, larger magnitudes from the past 120 years or so. This is just 4.5, and I believe it's 4.5 and above. Let's see here. I'm not for sure what I have it on. I think I have it set pretty high, 4.5 and above. But there has definitely been some large earthquakes out there along the San Simone fault area, and definitely inland along the central coastal range there. But to look at the specifics of this fault dynamics right here, as far as any magnitudes there within that region, I'm not seeing it directly where these other quakes are taking place. These little small quakes, 5.2 and a 5.2 there, inland away from the San Simone fault system, looks to be about the closest. But like I said, there's been some definitely some larger earthquakes in and around the San Simone fault system where this latest swarming's taken place there. These are some fairly deep earthquakes there for this area, about 8.9 kilometers or so, or also including a 9.2 kilometer depth there with that earthquake that's striking. You can see it pretty close, folks, if not right smack dab within the vicinity of the San Simone fault system there. So heads up, this all occurred earlier today. We haven't seen any further movement, which is good for those folks that live in the Central Coast area. So just kind of pointing that out, a little increase in earthquake activity away from the main regions that we normally watch, which would include inland and the south part of the state. So just a heads up. Northern part of California looking pretty quiet, looking boring to be exact here where I live. Nevada seen a little increase in earthquake activity around the Tonopah and Minor region along that fracture fault zone that goes from west to east or east to west. It also includes areas over here along the Mammoth Long Valley supervolcano, kind of getting in on some of the action just to the southwest there. You can see Long Valley, that major supervolcano that one day could potentially create some pretty photogenic skies there all throughout California. Could produce a could be a super eruption one day. Just a couple small microquakes in that region, but stretching and holding hands for the most part to this activity over here to Nevada. So keeping a close eye on that region. Ridgecrest area, Mount Whitney, seeing a little bit of earthquake activity. Mount Whitney sits well off to the west there. Beautiful area, but the Owens Valley fault system there, seeing a couple small microquakes. 3.6 being the largest in that little cluster along the Lone Pine Fault, Owens Valley fault system there. Ridgecrest seen a couple small microquakes to the northwest or north of that region, but nothing big to report in that area. Idaho seen a few earthquakes, and also Washington as well. Mount Rainier. What's going on at Mount Rainier? They keep just getting in on the news, right? We'll go ahead and check that out real quick here. Let's zoom into the trimmer map to check out the volcanic seismicity map of Mount Rainier. That's going to be this map right here, and you can see a couple small red circles. I'll zoom in so you guys can see that. Over the last 2 hours, just a couple small microquakes there. Looks like a 0.0, okay, and a 0.5 earthquake being recorded today around the Mount Rainier area. I do like to check out the latest seismograph stations there from that region, just to get an idea of what's going on the seismic department. And we'll go ahead and check out this one here real quick, see if we can access this. And it's not all squashed up today, which it looks like it is. So let's go back to yesterday. And it's pretty well squashed, folks. Not a whole lot of movement to be able to pick up or at least recognize on that specific fault system there in the Mount Rainier area, unfortunately. We'll check out this one down to the south, this 3-component broadband seismograph station, which should give us a little bit better overview, unless, once again, it's all ticked up and squashed out here. Let's see. I don't know why they do that. I really don't. It's completely not good. We'll check the HHG station, see if this kind of adjusts it a little bit. Nope. We're still looking at nothing, 0. They don't want us to look at anything. So we'll check out this red one up here. It's also, well, it's a 1-component short period station there northeast of the Mount Rainier region. We'll see if this has any viewable earthquakes in it. And okay, this one looks a little bit better. You can tell the depth, or at least the thickness, if you will, of, gosh darn you, I hate doing that, of the line, the seismograph station line. But it also could potentially pick up wind events. Wind events could be this activity here. It doesn't look like magma, doesn't look like harmonic tremor. That's just potentially wind events. And a lot of seismologists and geologists, they amp up the sensitivity. Not amp. I shouldn't say amp up. Amping up would be meaning that you'd be able to pick up any type of seismic activity, you know, no matter how small it is or how minor it is, even wind events. So in this, when they squash it down, I should say, when they turn the sensitivity down, what it does is it picks up less activity. So the only activity that you're seeing on a squashed out station is the highest, like the strongest event, you know, that would occur in that area. So, which sometimes it take a volcanic eruption to show up on some of those stations because they got it so squashed up. But here it's amped up a little bit. We're looking at you know, picking up some wind events and also some microquake, earthquake activity underneath and around, potentially around Mount Rainier region there. You can see a couple small microquakes there in the background. I do appreciate it when it's like this. That way we can all get a picture of what's going on there visually and not being left in the dark. So just a couple small microquakes in that area of Mount Rainier. The tremor department has not been uploaded yet. We'll go back to yesterday, and check out the seismic activity, or at least the tremor department. Not a whole lot. West of Seattle, seeing some movement along the Cascadia, and also west of Portland, seeing a little bit of movement along the Cascadia subduction zone. The day prior, just a little bit of movement south of Medford, north of Mount Shasta, right along the Oregon-California border, seeing a little bit of tremor along the Cascadia subduction zone there. So not a whole lot at play there, folks, in the Cascadia subduction zone, which could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. You know, it's just one of those things. So yeah, movement in the Intermountain West region, Idaho, seeing a little bit of earthquake activity, microquake, so to speak. We're not seeing a whole lot of movement along the Yellowstone National Park area. We'll check that out real quick. And this is the overview of Yellowstone National Park with the caldera majorly in play right there. You can see that black outline indicating the massive caldera that sits out there. Driving through that last year, I tell you what, man, I was up there in Yellowstone exploring around, and it's a beautiful area, no doubt, but it's a one-time event. It's a one-time event for me because I don't like massive amounts, herds of people. And you would think up there at Yellowstone, oh, it's out there in the nature, it's out there in the wilderness. You know, there's just wildlife and the open road. Well, no, it's like driving in San Francisco. There's like hundreds of cars around and traffic jams all over the place. It was a nightmare. You know, if you want to go to vacation, do not go to Yellowstone. I'm not even joking. Do not go to Yellowstone. It's a one-time thing, folks. It's a one-time experience, and that's why I went up there, because I had some time off away from work. I wanted to see what was going on up there, and I saw, and I left, and I will never be back. I'm not even joking. So yeah, it's beautiful. The wildlife I seen up there was awesome, but the people that I seen up there was dirty. Just too many people, too many inconsiderate traffic driving people. You know, blocking roads and just being inconsiderate. I can't stand that type of scenario. So it made a negative impression on me to visit this area with a massive amount of people and congestion that was going on up there. Never again. So anyway, for now, Super Volcano is pretty mellow, pretty quiet, you know, while thousands and thousands and thousands of tourists are up there right now. What else we got as far as seismic activity goes? The eastern coast looking pretty quiet, folks. Right, just a little couple small microquakes. We've been getting a couple microquakes around the Tennessee area, around the new Madrid fault system. Just a little 1.7 near Tiptonville. I wonder what they call that, Tiptonville. Tennessee, Tipton? Is that when you kind of tip your glass back or tip your shot glass back a little bit and drink that shot? Who knows? Kind of cool. Either way, it's an area where I want to visit. Furthest east I've been, well, I used to live out in Ohio, but I really can't count that. As far as storm chasing career goes, I've been throughout Louisiana, kind of chasing hurricanes last year, out here along the bayous, south of New Orleans. I've been out here on this area, beautiful region, but not a spot to be when hurricanes are coming in. But I do want to venture up through Mississippi and Alabama and into the Tennessee Valley this year if I can, for some storm chasing. It all depends, but I'm looking at potentially positioning myself this year for storm chasing in this vicinity. The severe weather setup looks like this could be the prime prime spot for severe weather season during an El Nino spring. So, all right, what else we got here, folks? Southern Cal, like I said, be on alert. West Coast, be on alert. Alaska, looking at some relatively quiet conditions up there, just some microquakes along the Aleutian Trench area, a little 5.4. The Western Pacific, moderate. Moderate when you look at the big picture, not a whole lot of movement. Aside from that 5.9 that just struck there, we're now downgraded to a 5.8. It was originally 5.9, now downgraded to 5.8. That's kind of the largest earthquake we've seen in there in a while. What do we got over here near Puerto Rico area? Puerto Rico, a couple small 2-pointers out there in that area. That's just, I tell you what, this region southwest of Puerto Rico just seen, just a lot of 2-pointers out there in this general area. I don't know. I really don't think it's a volcano. I've heard some and seen some comments and whatnot about potential volcanic activity out here. I don't believe that, but you never know. The depth on these earthquakes are pretty questionable. 15 kilometers or so way down there below the surface. But kind of have to keep an eye on that for sure. What do we got in the solar weather department, folks? Not this one right here. Let's go to solar weather. Coronal holes. Coronal holes are opening up, and it's creating potential for geomagnetic storms, which includes the latest 3-day geomagnetic forecast there of potentially a G1 class storm coming in. Need to be on guard here for this. Storm conditions there looking like potentially red on March 2nd. That's due to that coronal hole that's kind of facing the Earth side. We'll go ahead and check that out here real quick. You can see this on the map. These are coronal holes. This will ultimately zoom towards us in this fashion, towards the right side of your screen. And we got a large coronal hole down here on the southern part of the hemisphere of the sun opening up that will affect us as well. So we got this and the dynamics of the center part of this coronal hole, and all these little ones facing us will ultimately add potential for a geomagnetic storm on the 2nd of March. There's 60% forecast for the aurora on the 2nd. High latitudes, mid latitudes, looking at 25%. But of course, this is all subject to change. Right now, the wind speeds and the proton K indexes there are pretty are green. Of course, we're looking at maybe, just maybe, slight increased risk once stuff does hit for a G0 class storm. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But right now, looking relatively stable. I'm sure that will change later tonight. As far as sunspots go, look at potentially a C-class flare from AR2804. It's way out there on the, well, it'd be the western part of the hemisphere of the sun, right? If you're on the sun and you're looking towards the west, that's what you would see, the sunspot there. It's dying, and it's facing, or going away from the Earth, I should say. Current coronal aurora forecast, I should say, right there, looking pretty stable, but it does look like it's kind of thickening a little bit. And of course, as that solar wind picks up and the protons and whatnot amplify from the coronal hole of the solar wind that's coming towards us, that will ramp up a little bit and increase the potential for the auroras throughout the higher latitudes, potentially dipping down to the mid latitudes come the 2nd of March. So we'll keep a very close eye on that as well. All right, guys, I'm going to jump off here. What do we got here on the globe? One more quick check. That 5.8, of course, 5.9 downgraded to a 5.8. I am kind of thinking about severe weather season, folks. Looking at potentially making a trip out there to the southern states, or at least the southern plains area, come mid-March, maybe the end of March. Looking highly likely that I could start my storm chasing season here pretty soon, as severe weather looks like it could be ramping up there towards the middle of March, right around the eastern Oklahoma, eastern Texas, going into Arkansas and Louisiana area, and upper Mississippi region for severe weather. So that's on the agenda. That's on the agenda. All right, guys, have a good night. Stay safe out there. Stay alert. Be prepared. And as always, make sure you have an earthquake plan out there. Just don't panic whenever something does happen, because earthquakes can happen anywhere. I mean, Oklahoma had one earlier today. Central California as well. I mean, it's one of those things that we need to be prepared for and be on guard for. Just make sure you're not caught off guard. All right, guys, have a good night. We'll chat you a little bit later. Stay safe.